On Christmas Eve 2007, while families were finishing their holiday shopping, the employees of Moscow tax authorities number 25 and 28 were working late into the night to pay out a $230 million fraudulent tax refund. This was the largest fraudulent tax refund in Russian history, and it was approved in one day, on Christmas Eve, and paid out with no questions asked.
The refund was made to 3 companies that police officers working with organized criminals stole from my client, the Hermitage Fund, in the summer and fall of 2007. And my client, the Hermitage Fund, discovered the theft and reported it 3 weeks before the refund was made. But law enforcement chose to do nothing and allowed the theft to continue.
The thief, who the criminal group made owner and director of the stolen companies and who applied for the $230 million tax refund, was a convicted killer, Viktor Markelov. The stolen money was paid to accounts in the Universal Savings Bank, a small bank owned by another convicted criminal, Dmitry Kluyev. Previous episodes of Russian Untouchables showed how Interior Ministry officer Lieutenant Colonel Artem Kuznetsov became $3 million richer at the time of the theft, and how Major Pavel Karpov became $1.3 million richer after the crime. Today, we're going to show you how officials in Moscow Tax Office number 28 and their families became $43 million richer after their office approved fraudulent tax refunds uncovered by Sergei Magnitsky.
Sergei discovered the theft in progress, and he reported it 3 weeks before any refunds were made. And he named all the criminals and police officers involved and testified against these people. Very shortly thereafter, officers Kuznetsov and Karpov had Sergei arrested. He was tortured in prison, and he died at age 37, leaving a wife and 2 children behind. All of the officers involved in this were promoted, and they were all given medals for being Russia's best investigators. One day before the anniversary of Sergei's death, the MVD called a press conference to announce their preliminary findings. Their press spokeswoman, Irina Dudukina, announced that the tax officials who returned this huge sum of money in 24 hours are all innocent. They were just tricked. And she tried to blame the entire crime on Sergei Magnitsky, the man who reported it. Since Sergei's death, we've been overwhelmed by people just providing us with information on the officers involved. Today we're going to share with you some of the information that the public has provided and how the tax officials involved became enormously wealthy.
Meet Olga Stepanova, the 46-year-old head of Moscow Tax Office number 28. She's married to Vladimir Stepanov, who's a 46-year-old employee of the construction company Volstroy. According to the Russian tax returns filed by Olga Stepanova and Vladimir Stepanov between 2006 and 2009, their average annual income was $38,381 per annum. However, their tax returns don't show the millions of dollars they made from the crime that Sergei discovered and that they hid in Swiss banks. According to Cypriot company ownership records, on January the 26th, 2008, 1 month after his wife authorized the majority of the fraudulent $230 million tax refund, Vladimir Stepanov incorporated a new Cyprus company named Arivast Holdings Limited. Mr. Stepanov then opened a bank account for his company with Credit Suisse Zurich. Bank statements from Credit Suisse show that in less than a month, 5 transfers totaling 7.1 million euros were sent to the company owned by Mr. Stepanov. According to legal documents from the British Virgin Islands, Vladimir Stepanov set up a second company, Ikete Properties Incorporated. This company also opened accounts with Credit Suisse Zurich. Bank statements show 3 incoming transfers totaling 750,000 euros and 2 more incoming transfers totaling $650,000. These 2 offshore companies owned by Mr. Stepanov received the equivalent of $11 million. The amount the Stepanovs received in just these 2 companies as a result of the fraudulent tax refunds is 287 times greater than the income they declared for the same time period in their official income tax returns. In addition to the money they received offshore, they received huge amounts of undeclared cash in Russia as well, allowing them to live a truly lavish life inside of Russia. They commissioned Alexei Kozia, Russia's most prestigious and expensive architect, to build a compound in one of Moscow's most exclusive areas, spending $8 million on its construction. According to the Unified State Register of Real Estate Rights, the land for the house is 64,000 square feet and was purchased in the name of Mrs. Anastasia Stepanova, Mr. Stepanov's 85-year-old pensioner mother. The land has a market value of $12,212,000, which is 3,914 years of his mother's official pension. The estate is located on the territory of a former Tsar's palace, the Arkhangelsk development, just off Rublevka Chaussee, the most expensive area in Moscow. On this land plot, the Stepanovs built an 11,900 square foot contemporary dream house. The main house is 8,600 square feet, has a wine cellar, gym, billiards room, sauna, and home cinema. In addition to this, there's a 3,200 square foot guest house and a 2-car garage. In order to keep a low profile and avoid unwanted questions, the new construction was never registered with the Moscow Region Land Registry. Officially, it doesn't exist, but it's so large, it's impossible to hide. Their new house was awarded the second best country house in Russia by the architectural competition Festival of Country Houses. The house, including its land, has an estimated market value of at least $20,212,000. The Stepanovs also began buying properties abroad. According to bank statements from Credit Suisse, 2 months after Mrs. Stepanova authorized the fraudulent refund, 10 down payments totaling $471,000 were made to purchase a beautiful seaside villa developed by the Montenegro Real Estate Development Group in the seaside village of Bar. Bank statements showed that the money used for this was in addition to the money in their offshore companies. According to records of the Russian Border Control Service, after the illegal tax refund, the Stepanovs traveled to Dubai 9 times and spent 95 days there. According to the official Dubai Property Registry, on September the 14th, 2008, Mr. Stepanov bought a beachfront villa on lot F48 of the Palm Jumeriah. Today, it's worth over $3 million. The 4,900 square foot villa, with views of the spectacular new Atlantis Resort, has 6 bedrooms, 7 bathrooms, 574 square feet of balconies, and a 2-car garage. The floors are marble and the woods are mahogany. The villa sits on a land plot with a garden, a swimming pool, and its own beach. The Stepanov family also bought 2 luxury condominiums at the Kempinski Hotel and Residences Palm Jumeriah, extravagant in both design and address. The Kempinski is the showcase property on the Palm and grants owners a world of exclusive luxury. Bank records from Credit Suisse confirm that down payments of $2.7 million were made for the Stepanovs' purchase of apartments 428 and 530. According to the Kempinski price list, the 2 apartments cost $4 million in total. Bank statements showed that the money used for this was in addition to the money in their offshore companies. After the fraudulent tax rebate of $230 million, the Stepanovs had a $20,212,000 Moscow countryside estate, a $700,000 beach house in Montenegro, a seaside villa, and 2 luxury condominiums in Dubai worth $7 million, and the equivalent of $11 million in their offshore accounts. Total undeclared income of the Stepanovs, $38,900,000, or 1,013 years of their official declared income. The Stepanovs were not the only Russian tax officials getting rich. Meet Elena Anisimova, Mrs. Stepanova's first deputy at Tax Office number 28. According to records of Credit Suisse, immediately after authorizing the fraudulent refund, down payments of $852,908 were made to developer Emerald Palace Group Limited in her and her son Andrei's names to purchase a luxury two-bedroom condominium number G16 at the Kempinski Resort. Meet Mrs. Olga Sareva, another deputy of Mrs. Stepanova. According to records of Credit Suisse, immediately after authorizing the fraudulent refund, a down payment of $591,000 was sent on behalf of Mrs. Zareva and her daughter Elena as a down payment to purchase apartment 116 in the Kempinski Resort. According to the Kempinski Resort price list, each of these apartments costs $2 million. According to Credit Suisse records, these apartments were purchased from the same bank account used to pay for the Stepanovs' two apartments.
The $230 million fraudulent refund was not the first tax crime that Olga Stepanova and her subordinates at Tax Office 28 were involved in. Sergei found that Moscow tax offices 25 and 28 actually specialized in the business of making fraudulent tax refunds. Sergei Magnitsky found that in 2006, these two tax offices had made a $107 million fraudulent refund to the same small bank owned by the convicted criminal Dmitry Kluyev. As a matter of fact, Sergei found that in all of these cases, the companies were being moved specially to tax offices 25 and 28, which were friendly to making fraudulent refunds. According to Sergei's findings, almost $500 million was systematically stolen from the Russian government through these two tax offices from 2006 onwards. Sergei Magnitsky believed that officials who steal from their own government and their own people should be prosecuted. He wanted to see public money used for the education of children, for the care of the sick, for the care of the elderly. He wanted to see Russian public money used for the benefit of the Russian people.
Instead, Russian tax money was systematically stolen by corrupt tax officials, police officers, and organized criminals, and used to fund a life of unimaginable luxury. Instead of supporting Sergei Magnitsky and recognizing him as a hero, the government allowed Interior Ministry officers Kuznetsov, Karpov, Silchenko, and Vinogradova to arrest, torture, and kill him. In the year since Sergei Magnitsky's death, the investigative committee of the General Prosecutor's Office has refused to investigate officers Kuznetsov and Karpov's involvement in the theft and the source of their riches. It has refused to investigate how Oleg Silchenko and Natalia Vinogradova systematically tortured Sergei Magnitsky. The Ministry of the Interior has announced that the tax officers who received $43 million from the theft are honest and were tricked into making the refund. To add insult to injury, it is now trying to blame the crime on the brave and honest man who exposed the fraudulent refund and who identified officers Kuznetsov, Karpov, and the tax officials as key players in the fraud. Olga Stepanova and her colleagues use their positions to systematically steal tens of millions of dollars from the Russian people. They have the full support of officials in the Russian Interior Ministry, the Prosecutor's Office, and the FSB, whose officials aided them in these thefts and in covering them up, and they believe that this makes them untouchable. It is time to prove them wrong. Russia deserves better. Stop the Untouchables.